Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Last Epoch guide video, and in this one I'm going to talk about loot filters. The number one question I've been seeing every day since launch, and for those of you who play Last Epoch a lot, you know what to do. There's a lot of new blood coming into this game, and therefore I want to take this video and the opportunity to tell you that the loot filters in Last Epoch, even though loot filters in general in the ARPG genre is kind of the same, similar type of functionality, Last Epoch does this a slightly different approach, and I'm going to talk about how to set it up, what to think about, and just some general tips and tricks in general when it comes to this. So let's crack into it. Down in the descriptions down below, you can see links to some of my stuff, including the Last Epoch Guide Hub, in which you'll find a bunch of endgame guides. Now, I made a lot of leveling guides as well, and on top of other guides, but these are the endgame guides I have. This is, for example, the endgame Warlock Chaos Fisher build that I've been playing a lot. In here, you'll see a little section called Copy Loot Filter to Clipboard. You take this, click the copy button, and then you can go in-game, Shift F, and then click on the plus sign and paste clipboard contents. Therefore, you'll get the generic endgame filter that we have in our endgame guides. You might notice that we don't have a filter for our leveling guides on ice events. And the other way of getting a filter would be to go to a Last Epoch Tools Planner, click Loot Filter, name it whatever, and then click Copy to Clipboard. And then after having that, you can then go back in game, Shift F to get this menu, +1, and click the Place Clipboard Contents. That's how you can get a lazy ass filter sorted. And I'm going to tell you a couple tips and tricks for this and what to think about when you're leveling, and also how to set things up when you're playing. This is kind of important for mostly Circle of Fortune players in general, but also for the Merchant Guild. Now, first things first. Loot filter, you can have up to 75 separate rules. And the way these functions is pretty simple. I'm going to talk about them and show you one of them real quick later as well. But let's start with the idea of leveling. Now, when you're leveling, my recommendation is don't use a filter. Like, I genuinely wouldn't use a filter, at least for the first 10, 15, maybe even up to 20 levels. So normally I have one of these things, which is from the Last Epoch Tools Planner. They go to level 5. I've changed this personally to be showing all items up to level 10. This is set by creating a rule that is basically showing the rarity of normal, magic, and rare items, and then just showing them as white, and then having character level dependency, which means that they will only show when my character is at these levels. Once I'm past level 10, this rule will now block those items instead, or rather not show them. So that's how I like to do it when it comes to leveling, as you kind of want to equip pretty much anything when you're leveling. And the other part of it is that the way the crafting system works in Last Epoch, you are expected to have different types of crafting shards, materials. As you can see, I have 6,000 shards right now on this character. And let's take a look at a crit for me and my minions, if I have any. Why is it bugging? Crit for me and my minions. I only happen to have one shard, it seems. I only happen to have one crit strike chance per equipped sword here as well. I have 23 reduced crit damage taken. So as you can see, some of these I have quite a few shards of, and some of them I have almost none. So the important part here is that you want to make sure that your filter shows items that has the modifiers you're looking for, and generic ones, especially early games, such as resistances, maybe health, hybrid health, percent health. Just so you can use a shatter rune, so you get those shards. That's why I don't really recommend using a loot filter until you're like higher level, and what level you should start the loot filter on kind of depends on the build you're playing. If the build you want to go for endgame doesn't have any endgame mandatory items or uniques to be played, then maybe I would enable the loot filter around level 40, maybe 30, maybe higher. And if it has unique items that it has to be played, then I would use a leveling build and then enable it once I have the items needed to play the actual build. In the endgame filters, you'll notice a little section that is on or normally turned off, and this is that all items that has one class specific tier 5 or more, then that will be shown for the sake of shattering. Now, I don't personally find this one very useful, but I'm going to talk about the setup for the filters a little bit. So I made a filter here specifically for the idea of how I'm playing. I also have some items up here, which is actually for the other people that I'm playing with, so I can see their items dropping, so I can gift it to them. That's why this is set up the way it is. It's even more so on this one, as I'm playing with a couple of friends of mine, King Kong and EMP. Big shout out to both of them. And the way it's set up is so that I can see their items. So how do you then set this up, and how do you determine what is a good item or not a good item? You may be following a planner, you may be following a build guide, which should show all of the items listed in the actual guide. And in this case, we could take an example of this character. I do have a planner for this as a temporarily set up a little plan. I'm not sure if this will be the best or not, but we can take a look at, say, the belt. In my plan here, in this case, I'm going to go for a resistance base, and I'm gonna want to have minion life and minion damage prefixes, crit strike avoidance, and hybrid health. Now, for this sake, this example, I'm going to prioritize having minion damage, but when I'm looking for this type of item, I don't mind if any of these drop. So what I normally do is I set up an extra filter in which I recolor the way it's going to be shown, and then I emphasize, which puts the text in capital letters. So if I find an item that is red color with capital letters, I know that's something that I'm very likely going to want to equip. So what I've done in the first type, as I put in a item type. In here, I put in the belt. Then I put in this list, the subtype, which type of belt. And I'm looking for very specific ones. I only have this specific rule in the loot filter to show me the absolute best that I'm looking for. And then in the next set, I look for rarity exalted. And what exalted means is that the item has dropped with a one or more modifiers that is tier 6 or 7, which you cannot craft, they have to be dropped. And therefore, I will only see this on an item that is a spider silk belt, that has a modifier on it that is tier 6 or higher. And it also needs to have a modifier out of a list of modifiers I've added through an affix tab with at least one of these. And then I put advanced option to say that one of these modifiers in this list has to be 6 or higher in tier. The modifiers I've chosen in this specific case is obviously minion damage, minion health, crit strike avoidance, and the hybrid HP. Exactly the stats I'm looking for, which means that if I find a belt that is capital letters, red color, I know this item is an exalted item, and one of the exalted, or if there's more, modifiers on the item will be one of the stats I'm actually looking for. So that's the way I've set this up, to literally tell me this is gonna be a good item. Other rules is, for example, this one is showing all of the exalted items. So here's a real fun thing. If the loot filter is set up multiple rules like these are, for example, our in-game guides in the ice events is also set up with multiple rules. The rule that comes at the top will be the one that dictates the item. So for example, I have this one here saying that, well, all items that are exalted will just show up. They will be just a purple item on the ground. But these are also exalted items, but they're recolored. So since this rule is placed above this, what then will happen is that they will first check it if it's going to fulfill the requirements to do this with the item, which means it's going to roll and show me a capital letters in red color. And if it's not, but it's still an exalted item, then it goes down the list and see, well, this filter is telling me that it's going to show all unique set and exalted items. So therefore it will just show up that way. So if you want to make some changes, that's how you go about it. Experimental items is from the Exile Mages. I always have that shown. And then you just add any type of filters. For example, idols, I like to show all idols because I might pick up some for the other builds, but I like to have capital letters and with the same color in case I drop something that has 2 of the modifiers that I actually want. So it's like essentially a perfect idol. So it's small tweaks like this that you can do to your loot filter. But in general, I think the most important part about this little video is to understand the fact that you do not need to have a loot filter when you're playing in the early stage, because you just basically equip anything you can use in the early stages. And then later you would then simply add something like this. And I'm going to show you how to do this. The condition is by clicking the plus sign, you look here and take, actually it's because it's already there. You will then choose rarity. And in here, you can then check how many items you want. And this will, in this case, it will be visibility to show these items, but only if my character is level 0 up to 10, that it will show magic, normal, and rare items. So if it's not above, if I'm level 11 or higher, this will just not show anymore. And this is one of the things I put in the bottom of the filters. And at the very, very bottom, I also take a modifier or a filter that says hiding normal, magic, and rare items. So here's the problem with using endgame loot filters when you're first starting off, is that most of these filters have this specific rule saying normal, magic, and rare items are completely hidden. And then you start playing, but you end up in your leveling sequence where you might just equip pretty much anything that will do anything for you, but you won't see those items because loot filters has two jobs in this game. One, emphasize and show you the items you really want so you don't miss them. Two, hide the rest of the shit. Now, if you're playing when you're leveling, you might hide a little bit too much, and I think that's a very common issue right now a lot of people are asking about. So I wanted to make this video to voice that little concern, or shout out to people who are aware of this, and also give you a little bit tips and tricks of how I do things and how I set up my filter, and a couple of notes on how to do it myself. So I'm going to take one example again to show you how I would set up my amulet. So I'm going to put this on the other screen, and I'm going to show you the exact process of it. So I would take add a rule, and this is now an empty rule, and I will then say, well, I want the amulet to be capital letters, and I want it to have a different color. Let's not choose red because I've already had that. So let's take, I want it to be dark blue. Emphasize means capital letters. All right, correct. Character level, I don't care about this. So let's just add some conditions. We said amulet, right? So I'll do this, type item type in here. I'm gonna want an amulet. Accessories, amulet. Do I want a specific type of amulet? Well, the build I'm playing right now is a minion build. I would mind a turquoise amulet. Do I want something else? Well, I can use cold rest. There isn't any cold rest basis specifically for this build, except for the sapphire amulet. Now, do I care about 20% because it's mostly heavily focused on freeze multiplier? Not really. Let's just stick with the turquoise then. And then I'll say this will only show me turquoise amulets. I want them to only show me when they're exalted. So I'll take rarity and I'll choose exalted. Great. But now this is going to scream at me with a blue color any exalted amulets that is a turquoise amulet with any mods whatsoever. So let's go through the list of clicking affixes, and I'll just sneak peek on the other side of the screen. Basically, it's telling me minion damage, minion health, flat HP, and then it's cold resistance as the fourth one. So what I would do in this case, I would literally just search for cold resistance. I would search for minion damage, minion health, and then I would search for health. And it's a flat HP for amulets. So I would go for general health over here, defensive added health. Confirm. And then I can click advanced. I want this to only tell me when one of these four modifiers is the exalted mod on the item. Tier of individual affixes, more or equal to 6. That's how I would do it. Now, this specific rule is going to tell me when I drop a turquoise amulet with cold rest, health, or minion damage, any of those modifiers, that is tier 6 or 7, and it will tell me in a big capital letters, blue color. So that's how I would do that. I'm not going to use that for this specific filter, but that's how the process of making the filters work. And again, keep in mind the order is going from top to bottom in the loot filter list. And I hope this video had some use for at least some of you guys out there. If it did, please do hit the like button. It supports the channel and helps a lot more than you think. Leave a comment down below what you think of it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.